So guys, today I want to talk about as a guy who runs multiple companies and probably have close to 200, 300 employees between different companies. I want to talk about the experience of being fired and how I learned from dreading to fire people to loving it. Yeah, this kind of statement today. So I'm going to tell you something about myself. So I've been working since I was 14 years old. Different odd jobs. You know, I was a movie theater attendant. I was a part of a cleaning crew. I was part of a door-to-door salesman team, part of a construction team, I was involved in property management, was a real estate agent, Uber driver, a lot of different occupations. Until I finally found myself and I went to work for kind of corporate America in my mid-20s. But what I had, what I have in common with all the jobs that I had, that I pretty much got fired from every single job that I had. Pretty much, yeah. And I'm talking about maybe close to 8 or 10 different jobs over a course of 8 years. And, I think the underlying was kind of like, why did I get fired? You probably ask, right? How do you manage? Because I was a terrible, terrible employee. I was terrible. I kind of worked in my own clock. I'm not a morning person. So I would probably roll into the office, not terribly late, but easily 15, 20, 30 minutes late. Not every day, but a couple times a week. And I would stay late because I work way better in the early evening and at late afternoon hours. So my peak hours, as I discovered, it's anywhere between 4 to 8. Okay, that's when I do my best job. Imagine me, as a young guy, kind of telling my boss, that's the best time for me. Obviously, it didn't work out. For me, they put up with me for a few months, but they saw this guy is coming a little bit late. He does his own thing, because I would work on things that would interest me. I'd be become hyper focused. I have ADHD. It was diagnosed later in life. Actually, a lot of entrepreneurs have ADHD, as I discovered. As I meet and I go to different meetings, conferences, I realized that probably best entrepreneurs have some sort of ADHD. It just enables you to multitask and deal with many things at once. After being fired from a lot of those little short jobs, I finally applied and miraculously got accepted to a corporate job in one of the big banks here in America. I was a credit analyst, so my job was to kind of aggregate data, analyze it, and submit reports. So I remember that I was trained for about 6 months, 9 months. I was trained in different departments, and finally I was kind of after 9 months, I was okay. Now you can work on your own. I had a supervisor, obviously, but I was able to produce my own reports, submit them to a supervisor, who would then send them to be published, part of quarterly reports or annual reports of the bank. So I remember that was kind of the moment that was really, it really shocked me, I would say, and kind of changed my whole attitude about working for somebody else. I think it was July or August of 2008. So right in the precipice of the financial crisis. And I was preparing quarterly reports. So I would aggregate tons of spreadsheets and data from different departments. And I would put it all together in another template. And one of those templates was staffing levels across the bank, right? So I would see information about thousands of people, hundreds in my department where I worked directly, and thousands across the bank. I would put it all together, kind of tally it up, all the benefits, bonuses, salaries, payroll taxes, double check it against prior months, prior quarters, prior years, and then finally, if it looked good, I would forward to my supervisor, who would submit it to the forecasting and reporting team. So I remember that my supervisor came to me and he said to me, "Listen, Alex, we're looking to reduce overhead this quarter by 0.3%. And I said to him, "Why is that?" He says, "Well, the economy is slowing down, and the bank still needs to report good earnings, so the stock would go up by 2%, 2 to 5% for this quarter, and we need to cut overhead." I said, "What do you mean by cutting overhead?" He says, "Well, what it means basically, we're gonna lay off some people here." And and I looked at him and I said to him, just kind of looked at the number of people on those spreadsheets, and he said, "Okay, so I think we're going to be, if it's 0.3% of overhead, which relates to that much benefits, this much salaries and everything, probably we need to cut about 120 people across the departments I was reporting." and some of those people were in our department, in our building where I worked. And it kind of like you took this list and it kind of outlined which people are going to be laid off. And within a month, they notified those people. And again, I was a young employee back then, just working over a year in the bank. And I saw basically people who were let out. Some just took it normally. Some people were crying, some people were screaming, some people were cursing and breaking things. And they were being let out with security, like all their life, right? They spend, some of them spend decades at the bank, and they were being let out with security. One kind of particular story that I can't forget, kind of stuck in my mind, is the story of Fred, who I worked with. He was an older gentleman, kind of like probably in his early 60s, so he had about 2 or 3 years to retirement. And I remember he was, hard worker, gave, 20, 25 years to the bank, would sometimes stay late and come on the weekends if it was needed. Kind of just anything was asked from him, he did. And unfortunately, they decided to downsize him, to lay him off, literally 2 years before retirement. And the guy had, mortgage. He had a wife to support. I believe he had 2 kids in college at that time. So in the middle of 2 years to retirement, right? So in the middle of all this, that's it, Fred. Thanks. Your services are no longer needed. And I just remember how upset he was. He was a really good guy. Me and him kind of connected. It was my mentor, and I really felt terrible. And I was kind of like sat there stunned, just in my cubicle, because we all worked in cubicles back in the day, kind of processing this information. And I was like, holy cow, I can't believe it. The people gave their life, blood, tears, and sweat, blood, and tears to the bank, the best years of their lives. How many little league games they've missed, how many recitals they've missed of the kill, how many birthdays and family celebrations they've missed to be at the bank. And the bank doesn't care. It's kind of like, just we need to cut overhead by 0.3%, so our stock would go up and our shareholders and the big executives at the bank will make more money. So we're going to let those people go. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm a capitalist. I like business. I'm a businessman. I love capitalism. But what I'm seeing, I think we kind of in the last maybe 10, 15 years, maybe even longer, 20 years, capitalism really kind of entered this almost a self-destructive cycle, where it just basically has to consume more and more of itself, and eventually it's going to self-destruct, because it's where's the borderline where capitalism turns into just pure greed. And I think we kind of probably passed that border a few years ago. And it's just this constant drive to increase profits from year over year, quarter over quarter, and it just doesn't end. So the point that I want to come across from this personal story of what I remember as a young analyst in the bank, what I remember of Fred, is that right there and then, I sat there probably for 2 hours just staring at my screen, pretending to work, that I'm never going to let anybody fire me, never. And I'm going to start my own business. And if it's going to be even a hot dog stand, or a cleaning company, or a little real estate construction company, I'll be in charge of my own destiny. And ultimately, look, I was not happy at the bank. Many people I saw kind of working for corporate America or just in general, big companies were miserable. And they really did a lot of this. Probably 80% was spent on kind of meaningless, life-sucking, soul-sucking tasks that they really was just a waste of human potential. I was fired eventually. Kind of like I helped them fire me because I just at some point I didn't give a shit after what I witnessed there. And I felt like really the door of a prison cell opened up, and I was able to let it go. I felt this relief. And I said, okay, I had some savings. I had about maybe 8 months of savings. And I said to myself, Alex, what do you want to do? You have this 8 months that you can really, pursue something meaningful, or you can go spend them, blow them on travel, buying something, quick shots of dopamine. I decided to look at different companies that I would start. And I finally I saw where my talents, my passion, and my experience kind of connected, which was real estate brokerage, sales, and investments. And I decided to start my own company. And I convinced my brother to be with me. We pulled our savings together, and we were able to kind of last about 1.5 years until within the first year, we bought our first investment, raised money from friends and family. And we bought a second investment. Again, we lived very frugally, lived in 1-bedroom apartment. I drove, a 15-year-old car. And for the first 2, 3, 4, 5 years, we lived like that until we bought more properties, reinvested, and were able to expand. So, you know, when people come to me, and over the course of the last 10 years as a CEO of a company, I have to hire probably about a couple hundred people directly or indirectly, and I had to fire about 50 people and directly about 20 people. And in the beginning, I used to dread it. I was like, those poor people. I mean, I remembered Fred, I remembered, you know, all the other people. But in some part of me, when I look at especially younger people, a little bit less older, because those people are kind of sunken into the career, they have sunk cost, and they're more set in their ways. But it's somebody young. When I look at them, I say to myself, you know what? You clearly hate this job, okay? You're just doing it for the money, to pay the bills. Why don't you maybe, you know, try to do what I did, you know, go get fired, okay? Let me help you there, and go pursue your dream, pursue what your calling is, whether it's be a YouTube creator, whether it to be, you know, a real estate agent, maybe kindergarten teacher. There's so many talented people in our society that are basically stuck in those soul-sucking corporate jobs or meaningless jobs that are really not pursuing their passion. And I think it's also a little bit to blame with them, because I talk to many people and I say, what's your passion? What would you love to do? You know, and they say, they're just kind of shrug their shoulders, say, I don't know. So my advice to you guys, figure out what you want to do, see where it kind of intersects your passion, your experience, and maybe some network that you have, and go pursue it. Get fired. My advice to you. Thank you. And if you like this channel, please subscribe.